I don't, yeah, I don't need to do the introductions once again. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes. Yes, Vineet.
Okay, great. All right, great. Great to have everyone over here. And in fact, Anurag and me have been doing this for quite some time. We have had some agreements and some disagreements. And in fact, we are here for the same cause today to figure out what agreements we can come up with and what disagreements we can come up with. And largely, we are going to be speaking about the economy and how things have panned out ever since the pandemic began. The landscape of the Indian economy is not what it was pre-March, and new novel ways have been introduced not only by the governments from around the world, but by entrepreneurs such as yourself to survive and revive the economy. So here is an attempt to get your thoughts on what can be done, what is being done by you, and does the Indian economy look set to recover in the next few months, or do you think this is a hard and intertwining road, which is in fact replete with blind spots? Let me start by asking Mr. Camille Bossel, founder of Food Hack, the same question: that where do you think we find ourselves, and do you think this is a treacherous pass, which in fact is going to end up in more trouble, or do you think this is an opportunistic pass, which is in fact going to give us ideas and thinking that we haven't had the pleasure of knowing before?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I think it's really both. It's both a challenge, but when challenge comes, opportunities come.
Camille, can you be a bit louder? Camille?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Marginally
we can hear you now.
Okay. Let me know in case it goes down. But yeah, I was saying really, I think it's both. It's both an opportunity and a challenge. Obviously, that comes from both sides. And my expertise really lies in the food industry, so I can really talk about that angle. What we do at Food Hack is we have this global network of food entrepreneurs, and I would say the food industry was disrupted in the sense that the supply chain that is so global today, that crisis highlighted how much we rely on food that comes from very far away. And in time of crisis, that kind of vulnerability is highlighted. So one of the impact I think we'll see moving forward after this crisis is that more and more companies realize how much they rely on very long supply chain, and in time of needs, that can really be a challenge, because then scarcity of food becomes a problem. But I also think that specific industry hasn't been as impacted as others, because we still need to eat every day. So a lot of the startup or the company that we see in our network, even though they have been impacted, they still have seen growth or sales continue throughout the coronavirus crisis or throughout lockdown. So I think it has been an opportunity for the ones who already has embraced digitalization, and the ones that were the most active online were the companies that will continue well in the food industry afterwards.
Okay, Camille, you're saying that food is in category that has been possibly the least impacted of all the categories and you see a positive future ahead. I want to go to Tanul. Tanul, how do you see this as an entrepreneur? As Vineet said, do you see this as an opportunity? And what are you doing to pivot or orbit change or to be future ready? Because post-COVID, the landscape will be very different than what it is today.
Thanks, Anurag. So, while I am an entrepreneur, I run an incubator. It's been a little different for us because right now in my current, avatar, I am working with startups across fintech sectors. And for our startups, it has been sort of a time to, double down and focus on their product because they're at very, very early stages. So their challenges are not as much as, say, a mature startup. Again, it's very sector specific. So if you look at, say, fintech, I think that, there's an opportunity here because we've seen that, with UPI coming in, you saw us, the banking infrastructure didn't collapse. COVID did what demonetization couldn't do to digital payments. But if I have to sort of, have a more broader perspective, my sense is that we've seen that we rely a whole lot on human capital, especially a lot of the manufacturing sector, which has been sort of disrupted or affected because of the migration of laborers from one place to another. So there will be stages, right, of recovery. So I view it like this: there's a shock, It's something unprecedented that none of us have ever seen or experienced. So my sense is that, like in grief, you have recovery of stages. Stages of recovery, you're going to have those kind of stages. There's shock, there'll be acceptance, there will be some amount of recovery, and then a resurgence. Some sectors, such as health tech, anything focusing on remote workings, education.
Anul, that's a given. That's obvious. That's a given.
Right.
Let me go to Monica. Monica, the same question to you. How are you pivoting in your business, orbit changing, to be able to be future ready?
So, Anurag, I am a founder of a co-working space. The base is real estate. And real estate always seems to get affected the first whenever you have a downturn. And, surprising stages that we went through. The first was, of course, the shutdown, and it was a shock, and everybody was trying to think what will happen, and a hope that when the lockdown ends in India, things will change. And we did see a surge of interest in an industry like this immediately after shutdown. But then set in the whole thing of, okay, nobody wants to step out, nobody wants to come to offices. People are scared still to be around other people. So everybody wants to work from home. And that's a sense of the fear that people were talking about and shock that people were talking about. And one thing that we did in terms of a pivot is simple. We bring a better work from home environment. So we pivoted into a product that says, okay, we're going to get you better, more productive offices at your homes. And we set up offices with the infrastructure, may not be the community environment, but for people at home, for our community members and outside as well. Of course, within the, so for us, a lot of pivoting also has to be done in the back end, because our biggest cost is also real estate. So how do you restructure contracts? How are you ready? How are you future ready? So that's another pivot that has happened. So one pivot is a change in product, and the other one is more in contracts with the landlords and those aspects.
Monica, do you think that working from home is somewhat like a double-edged sword for infrastructure and the real estate sector? Because if companies get used to employees working from home, that's saving a lot of money. So lesser the infrastructure they would need, lesser the property will be required for even future businesses.
So Vineet, we still social human beings, and there is enough of, there are pros and cons of working from home. I'm not saying working from home is going to stop the moment people are ready to come back to office. There will be a portion, and it will be a plan maybe for companies as a BCP or a business continuity plan that they will use.
But do you think it's an opportunity that has been forced down the throats of companies and they're happy about it? They're like, okay, I can let this person work from home. I don't need to, in fact, have that extra office space to accommodate them and increase my cost.
No. So there are two aspects, Vineet. Like you said, it's a good and a bad. Work from home, definitely now people have been forced to test. What a lot of companies have not been ready with is the kind of infrastructure you need to give to a person who has to be productive for 9-10 hours. And that's something that we are bringing as a company to people's homes, that we set it up such that you're productive for 9-10 hours. At the same time, Vineet, you also need to understand what happens to people's psyches. Are you constantly happy staying and sitting alone and working? And it's a proven reality that it is not. Yes, there will be a portion of real estate and planning will be done, and people can save costs and not invest in as much space when it comes to real estate. But real estate is not going to vanish. People's need for office spaces are not going to vanish. What we are facing as a contraction in demand today, I think we're going to get tailwinds once people are ready to come back to office, because co-working spaces as an industry give the best benefit of keeping your real estate costs extremely flexible. And that's the tailwind. It's a matter of time that will happen. Hopefully sooner than later. But
you make a convincing point. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Mabel, what are you doing to become future ready?
So two things, Anurag. One is
I asked this to Mabel.
Three. So
Monica, we asked this to Mabel. We want to bring all the guests.
Sorry.
We'd love to chat with you for an hour. But we want to bring. It's okay. That's fine. Mabel, what are you doing to be future ready?
So we didn't actually have so much of an impact of COVID-19. In fact, in the past 120 days, before the countrywide lockdown came in, also we had switched into a work from home mode at least a week or 10 days before that. And we continue to work from home or use offices sparingly as and when required on a weekly rotational basis. And being future ready, if this entire pandemic has done a couple of things for us, it has brought in a huge segment of entrepreneurs who or businesses who would have otherwise been, digital or moving to digital only after 2 or 3 years, become digital ready today. Right now, you talk to your, Zumba trainer, or talk to someone who is a small kirana store around the corner. Everyone is trying to go digital, go online, and it actually brought in a lot of mass adoption from these micro entrepreneurs who were using our platform. It was till now, Open was of course focused as a SME neo banking solution for or a digital banking solution for small businesses. And when I say small businesses, it was always around the mid segment of the long tail of businesses, not the extreme end of the long tail.
So have your revenues been impacted? Are they more than what they were in March, or they're less than what they were in March?
I wouldn't say there's been a revenue impact. I've not seen a dip for sure. Our transaction volumes have increased. There are a lot of surge of demand of people trying to collect payments online. The deposits that are held in bank accounts have not dipped. So I wouldn't say there has been a negative impact. In fact, we've only seen a tailwind right now from this segment, and we never had to think of pivoting from what we were already planning for, because what would have otherwise come only after 1 or 2 years. Started that segment started opening up for a digital transformation because of the pandemic.
Okay.
Right. So, Surabhi Dewra, let's get your inputs on.
Read each other's mind. He's a mind reader, and so am I.
Yeah, well, birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah. So, in fact, is the same question on me also, Anurag and Vinny?
Yes.
Same question for you.
Before you ask me whether it has let me pivot, I'll say I'm in edtech space, and now you know my answer. So,
yeah, but let me say, people who say, because edtech space is what I call the Momoization of edtech. Like there's a Momo shop everywhere in Delhi where you go, in Bombay. There's like mushrooming of edtech, and not every edtech player will survive. While there is a movement, the competition is huge, and some of the players are raising so much money that it again kind of gives a rise to a monopoly. So while I understand edtech space, it's a hot space. I have 2 children and they study at home, so I know. But over to you, Surabhi.
Right. So the good thing is that being in edtech space, we definitely have become more ambitious than thinking about being into pivot states, because what edtech possibly did what COVID possibly did to edtech sentiment is what demonetization did to online payments, and what Startup India movement did to startups. So basically, you might be right, Anurag, that there's so much of Me Too kind of a thing, so much of money, there's so much of monopoly.
Similar business model.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the word Me Too too much,
competition,
but I'd like to use the word similar business model, no differentiation.
Dick Harry now wants to get into edtech, right? Which is positive also because it has pushed the mindset to 5 years ahead, the consumer mindset to 5 years ahead. So today I don't have to go and explain to my kids why they need to come online and study, which has reduced so much of effort, me as in a business, to get people online, right? So I definitely see this as an opportunity. Definitely there are huge challenges around the way business models are run. And
have your revenues grown?
Yes, we have grown. That's the good part. But then a lot of freemium. I think edtech should also be associated with the fact that everybody wants freebies, right? We want to consume everything in free. So that sentiment has also has raised.
But there's obviously more competition as well, Surabhi, right? How do you contend with that? How do you grapple with that?
We are into edtech, not in the school and college teaching. We are into career guidance. And everybody is getting more career conscious, and they understand how the careers are changing. So hence, I won't talk about competition as such. But yes, in terms of content as per large, everywhere is available now. But I see this as a positivity.
Gunita, I know you've been busy. Gunita is the only panelist I know who I know in real life. So, Gunita, I know you've been busy. I know what you do. Tell us how have been the last 120 days for you?
Like a lot of the people here, we are also very digital. And we've been a sort of digital documentation organization since the beginning. So we document history, as you know. And so for us, as an entrepreneur, you like the challenge. You like having to come up with new ways of doing things. So in the last 120 days, I think for me personally, it was a challenge to switch our entire sort of global effort into the digital space. So normally what happens is our team members, whether they're in villages around the world, wherever they are, they go out and they record these oral histories. And now we've switched everyone to remote documentation. So these oral histories are now being done remotely. And for us to pivot to come up with those protocols, it was pretty natural for us to do that. So I wouldn't say it has impacted us negatively necessarily, but what it's done is it has brought more traffic because everybody is digital now. It has brought more traffic, to our existing effort. So I think in this way, if you were already digital before all of this happened, if you were kind of already an online organization or business, then I think in the pandemic you saw a surge.
Yeah, the COVID is the true chief digital officer of most organizations now. I mean, if you ask, there's one name. But Gunita, I want to know, I know you keep raising funds because what you do is in the pro bono space, it's in the public charity space. Have you been able to raise more funds in COVID times, or it is the same trajectory, or is it lesser?
Yeah, well, in India, it has dropped significantly. So most of our fundraising now, because as you know, we also have foreign branches. And so most of our fundraising has happened in the foreign branches. And that too, like the individual donations have dropped to an all-time low. But we have a lot of institutional and foundation support. So interestingly, institutional support increased. I think a lot of foundations came to the rescue, so to speak, or they made a lot of funds available for the pivot to the COVID reality. So there was a lot of that type of funding available outside of India. But yes, in India, the funding situation is pretty tough for NGOs right now. So definitely if you're out there and you have your favorite NGO, this is a good time to make a donation to them.
Okay, let's also get an opening remark from Isabel Christine on the monologue. Isabel, if you remember the question, or would you like me to repeat it?
No, please repeat it. Thank you.
So, Isabel, basically, what we're asking as an entrepreneur, how have been the last 120 days, and what have you done to make sure your business is stronger, better, and more impactful as we go forward?
Right.
Basically, the impact of the pandemic and how it has affected your line of work.
Absolutely. So I'm from Norway, currently based in Norway as well. And I think the pandemic has affected us tremendously, obviously globally, but it's also, it's been pretty well managed by the Norwegian government. So the lockdown period was pretty short compared to other countries, which we're grateful. But as many of the other entrepreneurs here have voiced, it was a very tough period for all of us. And we saw it mostly because businesses that we usually collaborated very closely with were suddenly offline. Everyone was very occupied with just core business, saving their business, and talking to entrepreneurs like us in an early stage startup was not necessarily their main priority. So we had to think very hard about how we were going to make ourselves relevant also to them during this period, how we could not only sell the business that we usually sell, but how we can also create new avenues so we're relevant for them in this period. So we were very worried. We were worried about all the things that we couldn't do anything about, and we were also worried about the things that we could do something about. So we decided to box them in two. Basically what we do in Equality Check is it's a platform for crowdsourced anonymous reviews about how people experience equality and diversity in the workplace. So basically anyone can go in and leave a review about their employer, and then other people can go in and see what it's like to work at a company. And we measure the whole diversity perspective so that you can see how women feel, how ethnic minorities feel, how different age groups feel in one specific organizational culture. So what we did was that we launched a survey that was specific around Corona to see how discrimination and how culture was experienced from an employee perspective during the corona pandemic. And then we provide these insights to various different organizations. And then we gave them some eye-openers as to how they might want to pivot their strategy in terms of taking care of their employees during this period. That was also, we also launched the results together with the Minister of Gender Equality in Norway and also in Sweden, and found that 1 in 5 of all employees felt discriminated either based on gender or based on age during the pandemic. So what we're trying to...
I hope not on lack of hair. Nobody's discriminated because they have less hair, okay?
That was actually not one of the things that we measured, but again, maybe we should. But no, it was as many here have already pointed out. We had to start thinking about how is it that we can contribute to all of this, and how is it that we can create value in this incredibly chaotic environment.
Okay, Isabel and all the panelists, this panel is about rise of the she economy. Apart from being entrepreneurs, you know, women tend to have multiple roles, and entrepreneurship is about merit, it's about performance, it's not about a gender. But post the break, we want to ask you about your personal stories and your journeys as in women. How did you make it? And possibly other women and other entrepreneurs can learn from your journey. So we'll come back post the break and be able to talk.
We still have time for the break. We still have time for the break.
So
Isabel can answer that.
Yes. Isabel, we can start with you since you were the last in the first round. Tell us about your personal journey. How did you come to be an entrepreneur? And what is your advice to other young women, young girls who want to be entrepreneurs?
Yep, thank you for that question. So there have been very many different small episodes in my life that has driven my passion towards equality in the world. Throughout my education and career, I experienced how unconscious bias and stereotypes subconsciously tend to limit us as individuals. And when I studied technology and media in New York, I was constantly questioned of my presence, and rather than asked about technology, I was asked to get coffee or point the way to the bathrooms. And at my first job, I was jokingly promoted to be the CNO of the office, the Chief Note-Taking Officer. And even as I started having keynotes all over the world, I remember that I was once introduced to a stage as Norway's technology babe in front of an all-male audience. And even if I am the main keynote speaker, I'm asked if I'm personnel. So all of these kinds of things kind of contributed to a passion.
Which conferences did you agree? This is a language from maybe 30 years back. You should check to the conferences before you go.
Right. Yes. So I think it's often said
very chauvinist, very racist. You have to be very sensitive with how you introduce people.
Isabel, you're from Norway. A specific question in appendage and in amplification to what Anurag asked you was, how did the government of Norway help the economy when the pandemic hit? There were about less than 10,000 cases, if I'm not wrong, in Norway. The population in Norway is perhaps the size of just West Delhi alone. It's a little over 5 million. What kind of a help do you think the government was able to provide, even though the impact of the pandemic in Norway was not that great? Just to give you a perspective, we had about 49,000 coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours alone.
Right. So definitely different sizes we're talking about here. I think to celebrate our government, I think they responded to the virus very well. Obviously, we went into lockdown and had many of the same measures that I assume also India had. And we, in order to provide an economic stimulus, they provided different loans. They covered some of the fixed costs that every company has. They helped different startups with various different loans as well. I know there were some disagreements as to the regulations as to who should get what and how, and they're still working these things out. But they were quite well at, or at least it might be a little bit early to say, because we won't really know the true effects of how this pandemic is going to pan out in terms of economic repercussions within a few months. But for now, it seems like they've done pretty well in terms of government support. But that's also, we do have some help within oil fund that you guys might be familiar with.
Okay.
Gunita, you're in San Francisco. Again, Trump has come under fire on how he's handled the pandemic, and there has been a debate over lives and livelihood. Tell us a bit about how the economy is bouncing back in US. Is the local cluster-based economy bouncing back, or is it still in a limbo?
Well,
especially the Silicon Valley, that's the hub of the Silicon Valley. That's where, the social media giants are based out of, Gunita. It must be a different landscape since the last 4 months.
Well, in terms of the economy, well, as you know, a lot of the technological companies, a lot of the companies that were already online, like Silicon Valley companies, they saw a boost due to the pandemic. And then we did have a stimulus in terms of, what measures the government took, Trump's government. And we did have a stimulus. The way it was executed was majorly problematic because they didn't have enough of the right measures. The people who were in trouble were these, smaller businesses that were front facing. They're the ones who should have gotten it. But the stimulus was designed in such a way that if you had accountants and if you were one of these big companies and you had the right accountants, you could apply for it very quickly and get a lot of money. So a lot of tech companies that didn't need this money got this money. A lot of public companies that didn't need this money got this money. And a lot of the small, restaurants and people who actually needed this money, they were left out. They didn't have access to the right kind of lawyers and whatnot. So they did do a second stimulus. That second stimulus actually has not been spent, but I think it was a little too late by the time it came out. Like a huge number of businesses had already died by that point. And I know there's some effort to revive a lot of that. So we'll see in time. But here, the unemployment rates are pretty high still. So I don't think we've had a complete revival yet.
And Gunita, on your personal story, in your quest for entrepreneurship, what are the challenges you faced, and have there been any silver linings in these challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, I think, our work is pretty international. Obviously, India plays a huge role in the work. So I think for me, some of the biggest challenges, I think the same challenge as a lot of women have had here in the fundraising space. Definitely you'll see male entrepreneurs who will get more, they'll be looked at more favorably, even if they fail very quickly. And so I think there is that challenge, which I'm not going to talk about because I think we've talked about it so much. But for me, additional challenges included, having grown up in the U.S. and then trying to go to India and trying to understand that, space and trying to, and try to work in that space was definitely a very big challenge for me.
Mabel, tell us a bit about your story and tell us, how do you see women entrepreneurship today versus when you started? Has there been winds of change, and if possibly positive?
Definitely, Anurag. I feel there's been a huge surge of number of women entrepreneurs in the past days. I started in entrepreneurship some 12, 13 years back. So from that time onwards till now, today there are many more women entrepreneurs that I can see. Even when I see not just the startup entrepreneurs, but even the micro entrepreneurs coming out. The ones who are the home bakers and the small time social media entrepreneurs.
Home entrepreneurs, I call them home entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So homepreneur market is also growing very much, and that's a market that I definitely see surging even ahead going forward, because there's a lot of mass adoption that has come in with the pandemic. So that's on the plus point part of it. I have been lucky enough to be in the financial services sector, in the fintech sector, and primarily most of my dealings were with banking and financial institutions. Those are gender neutral organizations, I would say. They're not the ones who...
Banking at one point 10 years back had more women CEOs than any sector in the country. They've retired in the last 2-3 years, but the top 3 banks had women CEOs. So in that sense, the financial services sector was more inclusive than a lot of other domains. Monica and Tanul, I want to ask you about the economic stimulus. Have you seen people around you, entrepreneurs around you, get the economic stimulus? Is there a positive impact? What is your view on the government's economic stimulus.
Monica, are you taking it first? Do you want me to take it first?
Take it first, I'll go.
Why don't you take it, Tanul? Then we'll go to Monica.
So no, I have not seen any entrepreneur sort of go out and take the economic stimulus package. I'm not sure if there's one directed specifically at the startup sector. So in that sense, there hasn't been a concentrated effort in sort of rescuing the startup sector. But I think it's a very tiny fraction of the GDP at this stage, so I don't see too much. What I'd be excited about is seeing, for example, the government use, say, technology. They have the largest access to, say, MREGA or KCC disbursements could happen using startups today. That's a huge impetus, and fintech or digital transformation will happen through public and private partnerships. So, yeah, I'm hoping to see more.
And I want to ask another question additional to you, and Surabhi, you can take it. Camille, you can take it too. But there is, in the last 4 months, a lot of startups, the revenues have come down to almost zero, depending on what sector you're in. And they haven't been able to raise funding. So it's a double negative whammy. And there is a fear that beyond August, September, a lot of these startups may fold up. Non-funded, non-revenue.
Right.
Is it a real fear, or we are just fanning exaggerations?
So it's a mix of both. You can't fan anything without there being some reality. So there was a time, and startups in India have, especially when you're in the growth stage, if you're successful, it's been easy to get some amount of fundraising. But a lot of them will now have to relook at finances, so you will see that kind of impact.
Cost to be lesser than revenues.
Yes, cost to be lesser than revenues. Look at new metrics like profit making, which I think we've ignored for a long time in the startup space, and we need to sort of double down and look at that. And I think that it's now for players like us, investors and incubators, to try and see how we manage that. So as a pivot, as an incubator, we're looking at some of these startups and bring them on board and see what we can do to help them survive. Not something which incubators traditionally do.
Monica, your view?
The whole stimulus package that was brought in for the MSME sector, honestly, I've seen very few being able to benefit from that because of the qualifications. I mean, just as an example of one qualification, you have to have an outstanding loan to take more loan. So if a company has been steady enough to ensure that the loan was paid back or paid off, they can no longer pick up a collateral-free loan. I mean, there's just these qualifiers that do not help smaller MSMEs. The manufacturing sector, yes, with the equipment and all, but for others, I've seen very few being able to.
That's Monica. That's a nice way of saying that it has not been efficacious. It's not done.
I don't.
The purpose it was
being efficient.
Yeah. What do you think was wrong with it? Do you think it was not thought out?
I don't think they've understood the extent of MSMEs that are present in India, Vineet, and the kind of MSMEs that is there. See, it's great to change the qualifier of MSMEs so that you can get a larger pool in and they qualify as MSMEs. But have you understood what is the cohort of these companies that are there? Can they raise money against their receivables? Can they raise money against their contracts? I mean, collateral free is great, but you're just disqualifying a lot of them.
Do you think the banking system makes it difficult for some of these companies to, in fact, get a loan, get the money? Because the former governor of RBI also said that the biggest impediment to India's economic growth is the redundant banking system.
And Vineet, what Gunita said actually sounds so true to what is reality. You have to have smart accountants and smart lawyers to be able to get so many things, and you have to have a lot of money to be able to do that. I mean, it happens in larger countries like US, it happens in smaller, developing countries like India, that you have to have like super smart accountants and lawyers to be able to get any benefit of the banking or the NBFCs or the loan systems.
I have a little different view. I have to say that on our show, every week there have been 2 to 4 people who have received some kind of government help. They've received their outstanding tax refunds. 2 of them last week had actually availed of the SME loan. They're lesser, right? Marsho may not be even representative of the 100% of that universe, but there have been people. Second, dare I say, it is the job of an entrepreneur to make sure that in a clean, ethical way, do whatever it takes to survive and thrive, and not blame it on the government. That's what I feel. But I'll get Surabhi and Camille in. Again, asking you, what is your advice to young female entrepreneurs, young girls who are 20, 19? Because the age of entrepreneurship is coming now to become entrepreneurs. First you, Surabhi, and then Camille.
Yeah. Well, this is a very interesting question, and to listen to all the viewers. First of all, to all the young girls, stop being too dependent on your family members. They all want you to be, cared and loved and to be protected, but you need to get out of that. You need to have more resilience in you. And I would say to all the fathers and mothers here, let your kids be more resilient. Let them fall, let them learn, let them make decisions. And we especially, I'll talk about India as a society and the way we bring up our girls, we bring them in a very, very cushioned environment, not because of any taboo, but maybe because of an extra love also. So
it's a cultural thing. We're overprotected.
Yes, being overprotective. To my one single advice to all the young girls would be there, inculcate that confidence in yourself and let your parents have that confidence in you so that they can let you venture out and have a pre-planned things, have a more planning. So I definitely see that we women or we girls are too shy about and seeking out help and networking. It's very and whereas we talk about boys clubs, right? Where are girls club? Because we don't go out, we don't seek out help. So my advice would be, please go out, seek out help. Don't think a lot about what this person will think about you, what they will have an opinion about you, right? And have your network, extend that. So that would be my most prime thing, Anurag, for young girls.
That's a good suggestion. That's a very good suggestion. Absolutely. Camille?
Yeah, I very much agree with what you just said, Surabhi. I think one of the main advice I could give to younger entrepreneurs is to surround yourself with the right people from the get-go. Meaning that if you, within your family or your surrounding, you might not have entrepreneurs, seek these people or people who have expertise in the field that you want to get in touch with, and really not being afraid of contacting the people you need to get in touch with, even out of the blue, not being afraid of picking up your phone, calling people. And it's something that I think traditionally men have had more ease with, but that us women needs to be more forward with. And
that's a good point.
I think, I also think successful women, now that we have, maybe already 1 or 2 generations of successful female entrepreneurs, we also need to be better at uplifting or mentoring, I would say, upcoming young entrepreneur, which is something that you see as well when you mentioned that kind of boys club feeling. I think men are good at identifying future leader and helping them getting to the top. And us women need to be better at that as well.
Okay, it's the time when we start wrapping up. So a single question, and I'd like all of us to respond to it. We'll start with Isabel. When we talk to you in 6 months from now or 12 months from now, what would have Isabel achieved that she hasn't yet achieved?
Well, Equality Check is mostly right now in Sweden, Norway, starting to get some roots in Australia. I would love Equality Check to be live in India. So a big please to all Indians to go in and review their employer on Equality Check, and hopefully it will be a good beneficiary in terms of more transparency about equality and diversity in the workplace.
Sheer impact in terms of number would be huge if you were to get in. There are lots of equality initiatives in India at all levels of organization and in all kinds and shapes of organization. So there is a more appreciation of equality, of gender, of diversity, of inclusion. But we still have a long way to go because we have a certain kind of society. But it's changing very fast, but it needs to change faster. Surabhi, when we talk to you 6 months to 12 months,
yeah, I'll have to Anurag, on the personal front, I would like to do more of meditation and have a routine of working out. On the work front, I definitely want to take Career Guide to a level that I can take another 6 months break, because COVID has really put a lot of work on me, right?
I know. Bhumika?
Yeah, in the next 6 months, I'm hoping we can achieve one of the targets when we founded this organization. It was that we would reach 10,000 families to document their oral histories. And I think we're on track to reaching that in the 6 months. And that's pretty exciting. That would be like our big achievement, our initial goal. And then I'm looking at, bringing out this history in the form of film for public education and education of students. And also we're doing launching some really neat programs where we are going to be facilitating old family and friends who were separated by the partition to reconnect and to meet each other online.
Okay, Gunita. Camille, if we talk to you 6 months from now, what would you have achieved?
On the business side, so
you can give longer answers because we still have about 5 minutes into the show. Yeah.
For food hacks, so we based on a license model, so very similar if you want to TEDx. So we will open local hub and local communities of food entrepreneurs, and especially entrepreneurs that are working on better food, more sustainable, more healthy food. And throughout this year and last year, we've been good at opening different hubs throughout Europe. And then now we start to receive application in Asia as well. So hopefully in 6 months, and we did receive some application from India. I hope that we'll be able to open a hub there. Because
one thing is not just Google, Facebook, Amazon. India seems to be big on Isabel, on Camille's, on Gunita's agenda. So I'm glad it's the India movement. I genuinely believe the next 20 years will be India's year, and India will be in a better place over the next 12 months. In the 6 to 9 months, it may be tough, but 12 months to 18 months, we should be back in full swing. Mabel, where would you be 12 to?
Mabel, yeah.
Definitely powering a lot more SMEs who are going online, trying to inspire a lot more women entrepreneurs to crush their, barriers, think of scale. Doesn't matter if you are just doing something small in one part of your city, you can spread your wings, go online, take the ride onto the digital transformation and reach across the country if you will it to be. So that's exactly what I see for the next 6 months for open as well as for women entrepreneurs.
Okay. Monica, let's come to you.
So one target that we have internally is next 6 months, we should touch at least 5,000 of these work from home packages that we talk about for people who are not ready to work from home. So
and what is that? Monica, I'm curious. We have an IP on co-working spaces called Super Spaces. And you're possibly one of the few ones I don't know, but I know every promoter and CEO in that space. But what is this package?
So there are a couple of things that we not, and a lot of companies are not ready with. People don't think about data security, about what happens when you start working from home. People don't start thinking about how and where people sit and work from. Obviously, you don't have the luxury of having separate rooms in your houses. Is there basic power backup? Is there basic internet backup? Can you monitor productivity? Can you monitor how teams are working? Are they coordinating? And at different levels, all of this package is brought to people and companies, employees' homes. The thought is, I'm not saying real estate is going to disappear, absolutely not, but there will be a consistent portion of people who will work from home. And you need to have a very...
Monica, sorry to cut you short. Just have a minute left. Tanu, still to hear from you. And then we
Sure. So very quickly, 3 things, right? We want, for our existing startups, we're looking at opening newer markets like Southeast Asia. And there's 2 goals I've been chasing since last year. One, so I'm hoping to, sort of reach that. One is have InsurTech startups as a part of our program. And I've been wanting to board more women entrepreneurs in the fintech and tech space. So hopefully we would have achieved these 3 things. That's really what I'm aiming for.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. All the best to everyone for being a part of this amazing show. It was amazing. And in fact, me and Anurag were outnumbered today. But obviously, we were outsmarted as well on a number of platforms. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this show.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.